A lot of things this case has stopped me from doing, traveling all across the world, making. So I just want to get it over with, and, accept my guilty plea. I'm ready to get over it.
Anything you want to say to your fans?
Just say a prayer for him. I just need prayer. I don't need nothing else.
Well, Charleston White was celebrating you taking the plea deal. I think he even said he hopes you die in jail and stuff like that.
Yeah, I heard.
The biggest thing right now was that you actually accepted a plea deal for your federal gun case.
Yeah.
Now, how long have you been fighting this thing from the very, very beginning?
I've been fighting for probably 3 years. Probably.
3 years.
Boosie has been battling personal struggles for a long time, but it currently seems like he's finally being backed into a corner. The federal authorities are applying serious pressure, and his most recent federal firearms charge has completely derailed his entire life. Reports surfaced indicating that he could potentially face a decade behind bars. Just as that information went public, an expected figure suddenly emerged from the sidelines. It was Charleston White, the most vocal provocateur in the rap industry. As soon as Boosie's legal troubles reached the headlines, Charleston was on the internet celebrating as if it were a holiday.
Boosie going to jail! Oh, God is good. I keep telling y'all, street ain't got no God. God do not look after street. Boosie really thought he wasn't going to jail for that pistol. I knew he was going. He going to jail. All that newborn baby. Boosie won't get to see that newborn baby till that baby be walking and talking. Boosie going to jail!
He claimed to place his faith in God, yet it was obvious that the legal battle was draining his spirit. Keep in mind, this identical weapons charge had actually been thrown out once already back in 2023. During that time, the general consensus was that Boosie had finally escaped the hook, allowing him to prioritize his artistry, his children, and maintaining a low profile. However, the federal prosecutors didn't let up. By 2024, they circled back, revived the same allegations, and hit him with a new indictment. On this occasion, the pressure became unbearable, and Boosie gave in, stating he was finished draining his resources in the courtroom. He confessed on X that he believed God's plan is intentional, and he was eventually prepared to face the consequences. This wasn't merely a casual update. You could sense the pure fatigue within every single word.
Where the feds picked it up.
Now, it was a state case. The feds came, picked it up. They had a ruling in the Supreme Court that went in my favor, and the case got dropped by the judge. The case got dropped.
Supporters who have been following Boosie since his early Baton Rouge era understand that he has constantly lived a high-stakes life. Legal battles, neighborhood rivalries, and even serious medical crises. He has been dodging various types of trouble, both in the streets and in the courtroom. However, this situation feels distinct. A decade in prison is no minor punishment, and it struck him with incredible force. The version of Boosie appearing on social platforms wasn't that same aggressive guy, firing back at critics. This was an individual appearing exhausted, nearly defeated, as if his internal fire had finally dimmed. While his followers were saturating his comments with support and hope, Charleston White was on the web celebrating like he'd struck it rich. He started a stream with a massive smile, claiming he foresaw this outcome years prior and was eager to toast to Boosie's collapse. Then, moving even beyond that, Charleston pushed the boundaries further by declaring he hoped Boosie would never return to freedom. That is extreme, even for Charleston's reputation. Yet, being extreme is precisely what keeps him in the spotlight.
He brought you up because you were attacking Kanye because of the...
Nah, it's Kanye with it just happened. Nigga been coming at me. He been coming at me. It's just, I can't respond to those people, bro. Like, that's a danger to what I got going on. You can't take no risk of losing this behind,
What makes this entire scenario even more intense is that Charleston's rivalry with Boosie didn't just emerge from nowhere. This has been simmering for years. It always seemed like Charleston was lurking, just waiting for Boosie to stumble. Their conflict actually dates back to late 2022, when Kanye West caused a massive stir in the culture with that notorious White Lives Matter shirt. Boosie was among the first to voice his disapproval, claiming Kanye was insulting black people. Honestly, the majority of the public agreed with his stance. But Charleston, he completely changed the narrative. He hopped online to bash Boosie for even mentioning Kanye's name. From that point on, it was a loud war. Charleston didn't just stop at criticizing Boosie directly, he went lower than anyone anticipated, dragging Boosie's son Tootie Raw, and even T.I.'s son, King Harris, into the conflict. He insulted their looks, claimed they had no hands, and even foretold that both would land in prison eventually. That was the moment people understood Charleston wasn't just a typical loudmouth seeking attention. He was the kind of person to strike below the belt, targeting family members just to cause more pain.
I ain't really got no opinion on him because, my opinion can send me to prison. So I ain't really, I ain't really got no opinion on him, once you go to threaten people's kids, talking about you out of line. So, I ain't the one gonna do all that. I ain't gonna do all that, you know what I'm saying? It's just, hey, there's certain people you can't really express opinions on, and he one of those. You can't express how you feel because you might end up in prison. And I ain't getting tricked off the streets.
The streets were in disbelief, and everyone was bracing for Boosie to retaliate in his usual fiery fashion. But surprisingly, he stayed calm. Rather than losing his cool on social media, Boosie took a more calculated approach. In a conversation with Tony the Closer, he clarified that being too vocal could quickly result in him being locked up, particularly when the provocation involves bringing children into the conflict.
Look them white folk, Boosie, you done got too much. You done let these niggas play you too motherfuckers. This internet dumb and it. Say what Lil Tootie gonna do now? What Lil Tootie say? Listen, Vlad TV. Vlad post everybody going to jail but Boosie. Somebody tag Vlad TV.
So he maintained his composure, stating he wouldn't allow Charleston to provoke him into any reckless actions or statements. That moment revealed a completely different side of Boosie. It wasn't about fear. It was about being careful. He realized Charleston was fishing for an explosion, but he denied him that victory. Nevertheless, anyone observing could sense the pressure building up underneath. By the start of 2023, the situation truly began to intensify. Charleston was already aggressively mocking T.I. regarding his controversial paperwork event. That was the point when Boosie's son Tootie decided he had reached his limit. Tootie struck back, labeling Charleston as washed up and chaotic, even going as far as telling him to drop dead.
I'm gonna put your in jail, waiting for the FBI to send me the right kind of number, cause I'm finna make a report on your mother and people. And you make the man call your name specifically. The promoter specifically said your mother name, Lil Boosie. He implemented you and implicated you. To go to jail, back to jail. You gonna be on your knees, but them knees gonna be bleeding again.
And Charleston, acting exactly as expected, didn't just ignore the jab and move forward. Instead, he dialed the intensity up to a whole new level. He went on a live stream declaring, "I hope your father passes away from that diabetes. I hope they neglect to deliver his insulin 1 month." Who even voices such things? That surpassed mere trolling. It was pure malice directed at Boosie through his own flesh and blood. Then, in a turn of events that compounded the misery, Tootie actually ended up being detained later that very month on a firearms charge. The moment that report surfaced, Charleston was on the internet claiming responsibility for it. He boasted about contacting the authorities, submitting photographs, and providing tips to the Department of Public Safety.
I feel, I trust in God, man. This crazy.
He even alleged that Boosie was a 6-time murderer who utilized children to carry out his criminal acts. These were outrageous claims without a shred of evidence, yet Charleston voiced them loudly enough to gain traction. At that stage, their rivalry officially transitioned from online banter into real-world repercussions. Charleston wasn't merely talking. He was aggressively attempting to dismantle Boosie's life, along with his son's. Just as it seemed the situation couldn't get any more chaotic. 2023 arrived, bringing even more trouble for Boosie. Less than 3 months after Charleston targeted his son, Boosie himself was apprehended in San Diego immediately following a court appearance.
I'm not a street kid. I'm not a criminal. I'm a kid who was raised to tell the truth. When my mama come in and say, "Son, what happened?" "Mama, I didn't do that." I got to pay for a lawyer. I got 2 lawyers, Carl Mallory and Louis Stearns. Louis Stearns became Judge Stearns, Judge Louis Stearns. But nigga, I had 2 paid for lawyers. My mama is a well-to-do mama. I'm just playing, I ain't playing. I'm an adolescent going through an adolescent stage of rebelliousness. I ain't no street. Hell yeah, I'm gonna tell on you. I've been telling since I was a little bitty boy.
He pulled the hammer back on the gun.
And then what happened?
He fired.
It felt as if the legal system was simply waiting for the right moment to reclaim him, and Charleston didn't hesitate to transform the situation into his own personal comedy routine. He jumped on Instagram Live, preaching like a minister and claiming this was all part of a divine plan. even likening Boosie to Daniel in the lion's den, as if incarceration were a form of holy retribution. It was a level of disrespect that was truly unprecedented. Some followers assumed he was just trolling, while others believed he was being completely sincere. Regardless, Charleston successfully turned Boosie's suffering into content for his audience. That is his entire strategy, transforming the hardships of others into his own punchlines. By the summertime, the constant mockery had become so intense that Boosie couldn't remain quiet any longer. He eventually addressed the situation on Vlad TV. During that sit-down, you could see his frustration reaching a breaking point. Boosie openly confessed that he didn't even want Vlad giving Charleston a platform, particularly after the comments made regarding Tuti. Yet again, Boosie attempted to clarify that his silence wasn't born out of fear. His primary goal was simply to remain a free man. That has been his main priority from the very beginning, refusing to let anyone provoke him into saying something that could extend his time behind bars. Even though he maintained his composure, it was clear that Charleston was occupying space in his mind. Whenever Boosie's name appeared in the news, Charleston was right there alongside it, twisting the narrative and running his mouth. Then, as 2024 began, the rivalry bled into digital culture in the most chaotic way possible. Auden Ross, one of the top streamers in the game, had organized a plan to feature Boosie on his broadcast. That should have been a massive moment. Boosie on Twitch with a massive audience tuned in. But this is exactly where Charleston's name resurfaced. Boosie ultimately chose to decline the appearance because he refused to be associated with Charleston's antics. Suddenly, Auden flipped the story, going live to claim he actually rejected Boosie out of a sense of loyalty to Charleston White. That falsehood spread across social media like a wildfire. People began mocking Boosie as if he'd been snubbed by a streamer, when in reality, he was just trying to distance himself from Charleston's shadow. The situation escalated so much that DJ Vlad felt compelled to intervene. Vlad lashed out at Aiden, arguing it was absurd to take the side of someone like Charleston R., person who had openly praised Hitler and denied the Holocaust. Vlad highlighting those facts revealed just how toxic Charleston's influence had truly become. He had evolved into far more than just a common internet provocateur. His reputation held such significant sway that emerging streamers, artists, and fame seekers were treating him like a direct path to relevance. Even individuals with zero connection to Boosie were inserting themselves into the drama, just to capitalize on Charleston's notoriety. That illustrates exactly how far the man's influence had expanded. However, Charleston wasn't finished fueling the fire. By March, he was back online alleging that Boosie was instructing promoters to blacklist him. Naturally, Charleston transformed that into yet another extended tirade, claiming Boosie was issuing threats and that he had already contacted federal authorities. He was openly gloating about his readiness to see Boosie incarcerated again, treating the FBI like his own private security detail. To make the insult even more painful, he once again targeted Boosie's physical health, making derogatory remarks about his diabetes and treating a chronic illness like a joke. That is the classic Charleston approach. Strike where it hurts most. Make it deeply personal, and ensure the cameras stay fixed on him. This wasn't merely empty talk either. Boosie himself confessed that he was receiving phone calls from inmates already locked up, asking him exactly when he would be arriving to join them. Just imagine that. Relaxing at home while facing an impending federal term is stressful enough. But then having inmates call you up as if they're reserving a bunk for you, that is pure psychological warfare. Charleston was fully aware of his actions. This had evolved beyond simple trolling. It was about intensifying the pressure, making Boosie feel trapped before he even stepped inside a cell. And this is where the situation takes an even darker turn. Rumors began to circulate that Boosie might not even want to endure a lengthy trial. He simply wanted the ordeal to end. And honestly, who could fault him? Consider the nightmare of Charleston potentially appearing in court. If Charleston White had any opportunity to enter that courtroom, you already know he would have transformed the entire proceeding into a media circus. He is exactly the type to point fingers, mock the jury, and then rush to the blogs afterward to brag. I played a part in locking Boosie up. That isn't an exaggeration. That is literally Charleston's entire strategy. He openly boasts about contacting the police, setting individuals up, and even confesses to testifying in court back when he was a teen. That is another aspect of Charleston's history that continually comes back to light. At only 14 years old, Charleston was involved in a robbery that turned fatal when another teenager shot a man named Michael Levy. Rather than staying silent, Charleston took the stand and testified against his co-defendant, Antoine Doolittle. In the streets, that is considered the ultimate sin, being labeled a snitch. Even though he was just a child at the time, people have refused to let him forget it. However, Charleston doesn't run from his past. He actually defends it. His stance is simple. He was a kid in a courtroom who told the truth. And to him, that isn't snitching, it's survival. When footage from that old juvenile case recently resurfaced, the internet exploded, calling him a hypocrite. People began asking how he could mock rappers for being rats when he had testified himself. True to form, Charleston doubled down. He made it clear that he never lived by the street code to begin with and doesn't care who is offended by that. That is exactly what makes him so untouchable. He isn't playing by anyone else's rules. He has no problem calling someone else a rat, while proudly waving his own court documents in the air. That contradiction is exactly why people keep watching, even if they can't stand him. When you look at the big picture, Boosie's plea deal, his visible exhaustion, the online rumors, and Charleston's constant antics, it's easy to see why Boosie just wanted to skip the trial. He didn't need the added stress of sitting in a courtroom. While Charleston turned the proceedings into a live performance, Boosie wasn't just trying to outrun the law. He was trying to escape the chaos Charleston was prepared to unleash. That's why this feud is deeper than simple internet trolling. It's personal, it's messy, and it's clearly costing Boosie his peace of mind. Right now, as Boosie's entire world feels like it's hanging by a thread, Charleston White is treating the situation like front row entertainment. The moment news broke that Boosie was considering that plea deal, Charleston was back online, louder and more relentless than ever. To him, this wasn't just another rapper getting caught slipping. It was plain and simple karma. He went live, bragging that everything he'd been predicting for years was finally coming true. In Charleston's eyes, the trolling, the insults, and his constant claims that Boosie would eventually crash out had all been validated. He acted as if the streets had just handed him a trophy for being right all along. This is why Charleston's celebrations cut so deep. While Boosie was still processing his new reality, Charleston was already dancing on his downfall like it was a party. He even admitted flat out that he'd been waiting for this exact moment, almost as if he'd been praying for Boosie to end up back behind bars. It shows that this beef is no longer about clout, it's personal. Charleston has been locked in on Boosie since 2022, popping up to rub salt in the wound every time something went wrong. From mocking Tootie's arrest to poking fun at Boosie's health and even threatening to call the feds at every turn. It seems he won't be satisfied until Boosie is completely out of the picture. However, not everyone is laughing along with Charleston. The streets are split on this one. Some believe Boosie brought this on himself, arguing that after years of dodging charges, online disrespect, and reckless living, it was only a matter of time before the feds boxed him in. To them, Charleston is just saying out loud what everyone else was already thinking. Then there's the other side. The loyal fans who see Boosie as a survivor who has been through hell and back and kept pushing. To them, Charleston doesn't look like a truth teller. He looks like a hater, obsessed with tearing another black man down. That is the debate currently buzzing in barbershops, on podcasts, and in comment sections everywhere. One thing is certain, if Charleston is this loud while Boosie is still technically free, just imagine the circus. If the judge actually hands down a 10-year sentence, Charleston would treat that like his own personal victory parade, hitting every platform possible, live streaming, shouting, and probably even popping bottles. That is how far he is willing to go to rub it in. It's not far-fetched to think he'll keep digging deeper, either. Charleston thrives on other people's pain. The more people react, the more energy he gets, and the cycle just keeps feeding itself. Meanwhile, Boosie is trying to lean on his faith, but his words reveal a man who is completely exhausted. His posts about trusting God don't have the usual cocky energy fans grew up watching. Instead, they sound like someone bracing for the worst. When you have Charleston constantly in your ear, the feds breathing down your neck, and the internet split between mocking you and praying for you, finding peace becomes almost impossible. This isn't just about prison time anymore. It's about a legacy being put to the test. It's a question of whether Boosie can bounce back, or if Charleston's voice will be the one echoing over his career forever. Simply put, this is one of the wildest feuds in hip-hop right now, because it isn't built on hit records, street corners, or even vignettes built on humiliation. Charleston White has made it his personal mission to publicly embarrass Boosie at every turn. Now, with the possibility of a decade behind bars looming, Charleston is acting like the king of the internet. But there's a catch. If Boosie actually gets locked up, it might backfire. History shows that when the system takes a rapper down, they often come back bigger than ever. Prison has served as a strange reset button for many artists. And if Boosie returns after 10 years stronger and sharper, Charleston's celebration might not age very well. For now though, it's a waiting game. Boosie's plea deal is on the table, the streets are buzzing, and Charleston is circling like a vulture, waiting to feast on what's left of his reputation. This is more than just another headline. It's the kind of story that tests loyalty, exposes fake friends, and reveals who is truly rooting for your downfall, no matter which side people take. One thing is clear, the spotlight has never been hotter, and the outcome is set to shake the culture for years to come. The only question left is, will Boosie rise again, or will Charleston White get the last laugh? The answer is coming soon, and the whole world is watching. Don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and comment to keep up with more stories just like this one.